Hello everybody. I hope you're having a happy Easter weekend off work and with your family. And thank God for Jesus and coming here to be with us. Yesterday in my video, I talked about my very early childhood, which was a lot of fun. And I wanted to talk about the next few years of my life after that. My mom back then, she was mommy. I remember fond things about her, playing hide and seek with me. We had a lot of kittens and cats, and I remember having 2 swimming pools in the backyard, the kind that you just put up and fill with water, and I had my little baby pool and my mom's purple bathing suit, and listening to Ike and Tina Turner and Ringo Starr, Sonny and Cher, and it was a good time. But there were a couple of incidents that happened, and now that I'm older, I understand that my mom must have suffered from a profound mental illness, because during the good years, my dad had taken me, I remember one time, to the hospital to visit my mom. And of course, back in that time, or maybe not, any time, you would explain to your small child, that mommy tried to commit suicide. But I remember the scars and running to her down the hallway in this hospital. And I don't remember anything after that. I was very young, and sometimes you only get those little bits and pieces of moments when you're that little. And I remember another time when my mom had obviously taken way too many pills of some kind, and because I remember a police officer coming to our door with his police hat, and grandma coming, and people from the church trying to get my mom to go in the bathroom and throw up, and them taking her, and my dad coming home early, and my grandma trying to feed me something. And there was a couple of times my mom had disappeared, and I was very close to my dad. I was a daddy's girl. I was adopted by him. He was in my life when I was a baby. And he and I would go looking for her. And at the time, it seemed like something exciting to me, because I was too little to understand the gravity of what was happening. And you see how chaos, I did videos on being addicted to chaos, you see how that chaos kind of crept in slowly, even at this very early age. And then things after the second suicide attempt, where she had swallowed pills and was calling for me in her room, the next thing that I remember was one of my mother's high school friends coming with her station wagon, and I remember our things being stuffed into this vehicle and just crammed in, and pots and pans and clothes and things. And my dad was there. And I remember that incident feeling like things are never going to be the same again. And I must have been about 6 years old. And we were off into the unknown. And I knew beyond my years that this was a very significant turning point. I, of course, couldn't articulate that at the age of 6, but I knew. I remember knowing And it's kind of hard going back and trying to evaluate how you were feeling at the age of 6. But I've done that, and I can definitely say that that is the way I felt. And then the next thing I knew, we were staying at my mother's friend's, and there was another man in my mom's life, and it wasn't my dad. And that was the end of the innocence for me. And that was way too soon. Then we were off driving to another state, into the unknown, and I remember just not being happy at that point. Not being happy for the first time in my little life. There is this man that's holding my mother's hand. He's not my father, and I'm sure many of you have had similar experiences. And if you haven't, I'm so glad that maybe you had a longer time with your father and mother together. So we left not just my home and my childhood behind and my innocence. We left my dad behind. And that was so hard. It was just hard. And I remember feeling for the very first time in my life real fear, absolute fear of not knowing what to expect next. So I wanted to share that because I'm doing this in small bits, and that makes it more digestible for me and for you if you're following my videos. You know, my mom, there were little signs along the way that my mom was an unhappy woman, and it wasn't my dad's fault. He was a good man. He took another child that was not his and adopted her and became her father in every sense of the word. So he was a good man. And I can remember memories even at 3 or maybe before that, just little snippets of my Uncle Frank, which was my dad's biological brother, coming to visit at night when my dad was gone to work and I was already in bed, and Mom and him laughing together. And I didn't know it then, but there was trouble on the horizon. And there is a lot about my mother that had caused me to detach from her early on and even hate her. But in these early years, I loved her. I was attached to her. And that's kind of profound for me because I've lived in this hatred for a while and wanting to forgive, wanting to let go. And here for the past few days, thank God there's been some really good memories that have been coming to the surface that I have forgotten. In doing this, that's brought it to the surface for me. And sometimes we need to go back and maybe pick those things out and try to focus on those things in our journey to forgiveness. So I'm going to end this video here. I know it was a short one, but there's more to come, and I'll be sharing the next phase of this. Of course, it gets pretty dark from here on out and gets darker and darker and darker as we go. But it does, the sun does shine again for me, and I hope for you too. And until next time, remember that you're worthwhile as a person, no matter what's happened to you. In fact, if you've had a story, if your life has been chaotic and abuse has been in your history of life, you have a story and a level of compassion that you would have never had, and a level of understanding that you would never have had those things not happened. And I'm sorry that they did. but they can be looked upon with hope, and looking at them in that light is very helpful. You matter to the people in your life and to strangers that you've never met, that you can help and show love and compassion to, and some of the simplest things can express that love and compassion. And you're not alone. I'm here sharing this story to let you know that, if nothing else. And until next time, take care of yourself.